Test. We're recording. This is Agent Simon Slipdick of the FBI. The following recording is evidence relating to the events of 27th of September 2017. This is Case File 30 of Caged In. We feel the man in question is dangerous and has watched far too much Nicolas Cage. Approach with caution and see this as a warning of the dangers of cage consumption. Again, proceed with caution when consuming Nicolas Cage. We will continue to follow this case through to its logical conclusion. This is Agent Simon Slipdick, signing off.
Hello and welcome to episode 30 of the Caged In podcast. Oh boy, who can believe we have made it to 30 episodes? I bloody can, because there's 70 odd Nicolas Cage films out there and I'm gonna watch every last single fucking one of them. You could say I'm going to watch it to the bitter end, which leads me to the guest I have on this week's episode, who is Todd Jordan of the amazing, great Bitter End podcast, who have just finished their 7th season dissecting and picking apart the Child's Play of Chucky franchise. They've done some great seasons. Some of my favourites have been the Nightmare on Elm Street, the Friday the 13th and the Police Academy. Just a few of the 7 or so seasons those guys have done, and I'm much looking forward to their next season as well, which is a Christmas classic of mine, Home Alone. Check those guys out. You can find them on Facebook, which is The Bitter End, and you can find them on Twitter at Bitter End Pod, and obviously on all of the podcasting apps. Please, if you do anything from this episode, subscribe to those guys. Just give them a try, because they are great, and I am so very much thankful that Todd agreed to be on this episode, because I'm a massive fan, and I reached out to him and he said, yeah, I'd love to be on this episode. I'd love to talk about 8mm with you. And it was a fun conversation and a good time had all around. So, moving on to a new segment we have on the podcast, looking at an anagram relating to the film we are about to watch, to see if it gives us any little clues of what to expect of what is coming up. And this week's anagram, as always, provided by the Anagram Hunter on Twitter at Thomas_W_Hunter. He has provided us with this: the character name Tom Wells, that of Nicolas Cage's character. An anagram for that is mellowest. Let's see if this is Cage at his mellowest, or if it is him raging, pumping, and full throttle fucking rah. Well, there's only one thing left to do, guys, and that's to get raging with a Cage. Feels like I've been awake for days, watching films starring Nicolas Cage. Could be shit or it could be fun. Valley Girl, Face Off, An Army of One, Deadpool, Cornell, Lord of War, The Wicker Man, Trespass, and so many more. Know how it starts, I don't know how it ends. The first 10 are solo, then it's me and some friends. No distractions, no expectations. Over the weeks, hear my frustrations. I guess the podcast is about to begin. I'm your host, Petra Plasilivus, and I'm Caged In. Today we are looking at 8mm. I am not alone today. I am joined by Todd Jordan of the Bitter End podcast. How are you, Tom? Todd, sorry. Oh, fuck!
Mate. Rude for a start. But, I'm fine. I'm pumped. It's going to be interesting for me. I've seen 8mm. I haven't seen 7mm or 6mm or 5mm.
Well, you saying that, there is actually an 8mm too. I did.
The fuck?
I was looking for images for this film and saw that there was like posters for an 8mm. Obviously,
Are
not.
you sure that's not 8 Mile?
No. That would be that would be great if there was an Eminem led sequel to this, but unfortunately, that is not the case. I don't know who it had no one I recognised on the poster. I'm not sure. I can't remember this film enough to know if this left much to be desired in unanswered questions. Or
Well, man, it made a bit of an impact on me. I've seen it twice, to my knowledge, right? I think I saw it when I was about 14 and starting to get into like spooky shit.
Yeah.
And I know that it's written by the guy that wrote Seven.
Okay.
So, like, he obviously got, like, super big for his boots with Seven and was then like, all right, I'm going to write the world's most existential slasher where, you know, the true villain is man's dark heart.
Well, one of the things I remember about this film, and it's very little, is the fact that the bad guy, or one of the bad guys, really likes Danzig.
Yeah, fucking Clinton Danzig. He's just got like posters, and then there's like Aphex Twins Come to Daddy is all through.
Yeah,
I remember that. And when I was fucking younger, I was like, this is the most hardcore film ever, man. And then I probably would have seen Seven and gone, oh, that's what a script is supposed to be like.
Yeah, definitely. Well, there's a lot of like cap sleeves in this as well. There's a lot of like black cap sleeves t-shirts and horrible all black tattoos. Like I saw an image of Joaquin Phoenix with just a blacked out skull and crossbones. Very almost reminded me slightly of like Hackers-esque. Like these people would have lived in the same world. Like
I mean, dude, it's 1999.
Yeah,
it's
the
the
cusp.
golden age of like, movies about douchebags for douchebags.
Or like douchebag, and the internet was a scary thing as well. Obviously, like the subject matter of this film will kind of leave
But
a
this
bit.
is what's so
loose.
bullshit because in the age of the internet, like who's watching porn on 8mm?
That is true. Yeah.
Nowadays, it would be called like MPEG.
I imagine like now, like 8mm porn would probably have a resurgence because of the whole like hipster movement. So like
Artisanal snuff.
Yeah, exactly. So like, I'm going on RedTube or like YouPorn or something. It's like, I've got some slide, like go right back. I've got some slides or some 8mm. We'll get a sheet up on the wall, get the projector out, and really
Look
get
at the
to it.
daguerreotypes.
Yeah, like I don't know, communal wanking though, something I just brought to my mind, which I'm very sorry to bring.
Time.
Yeah, but yeah, this is directed by Joel Schumacher as well.
The shoemaker himself.
A man who I believe this 1997 he committed a massive sin to cinema, as a lot of people believe, in Batman and Robin.
Oh, you mean the only good Batman film?
Yeah?
Yeah.
Are you a fan?
That's the most I've ever been moved to be a fan of a Batman film.
Oh, not a Batman fan.
I'm just not a Batman guy. That guy can get fucked. But Batman and Robin, that one's all right.
Yeah?
Yeah, it's got like a bit in the circus. It's got fucking what's his name, mate boy that plays Robin. He's all right.
Yeah, Chris O'Donnell.
Chris O'Donnell, that's the guy.
Alicia Silverstone as Batgirl.
Yeah, probably.
And Arnold Schwarzenegger, obviously, as the big bad guy.
Right, thank you. And Tommy Lee Jones.
Yeah. No, I haven't seen that film since I was a kid, and I remember having fond memories of it. I only bring it up that obviously in the zeitgeist it is known as like the death of Batman, as it were, in the cinematic universe, that not to be brought back until Christopher Nolan got really moody and broody with it and was like, oh yeah, like here's Batman as you've never said. Fuck off.
Well, he
like,
was probably trying to do the 8mm version.
Yeah,
of Batman,
definitely.
following on his hero Joel Schumacher's lead.
Yeah, so I guess we should just like knuckle down, like roll out the screen, get the projector ready.
When you said roll out the screen, you know what I had in my mind there? I had in mind you like putting like plastic sheeting down.
Oh no!
And that what this is this is going to be like audio snuff, and you've invited me here to kill me live on mic for your listeners.
No. I've actually got. If you would like to come out, lady number one. There's not a lady number one. There's not a lady number two.
He's like, get out while you still can. I'll distract him with a DVD.
Yeah. So we should roll out.
Get away!
the projector screen and get the 8mm ready and get raging with Cage. So we are back. We have watched 8mm. We have taken the deep dive into the seedy underworld of snuff movies, I guess is what you can call it. What did you think, Todd?
Mate, it is grim. It's ugh. I was feeling quite pumped before we watched this because I haven't watched it for a while, and I love a horror movie. And I love a bleak movie with no hope.
Well, yeah, definitely. Like from the opening shots, like one of the notes first thing I wrote was like, the colour palette of this film is just grey, bleak. Like it's just lots of blues and greys. Like I don't know if there's like any filters or anything like that on the film, but it's just like it just look every dimly lit. Just look. Like,
nailed it, man. Because we mentioned Seven in the intro, which is by the same writer, and that's a very brown film, right? Seven it's brown and dark red and rust and scabs and mud and grimness, and this, you're right, it's just like grey, like concrete, like everybody's miserable, everybody's half dead.
Yeah, well, even in the most like lavish places, like you can imagine, like when you think of like Hollywood or like New York, it's like they have found the locations which are like the grimiest, like the least furthest away from like a postcard interpretation of those cities. Like, like you turned to me during the film and like, I don't. LA just looks really shit.
Well, I mean, maybe these bits of it at least. But yeah, and I get that, like, the movie's trying to do this thing, like, where it kind of draws you in and shows you I guess it wants to, like the subject matter of the movie itself, it wants you to kind of look at this horrible thing and feel that little twinge of curiosity that you have, to look slightly closer at the horrible thing.
Yeah, definitely.
And then the message to me, it seems to be like about how that act of looking will kind of change you. Like you can't just look and come away clean. And that is how I feel after watching the movie. I need a shower, man. I need a shower.
I kind of had a moment of realisation and felt a bit like taken aback, like, oh fuck, like this film is almost like a explosion of, almost like a genesis of what this, like distillation of what this podcast is. Like the plot is like, not obviously I'm not trying to deep dive into snuff movie, but like trying to really go into the mire of filth that is Nicolas Cage. Like he is trying to like dive into this seedy underworld to try and find some answers that maybe he doesn't want to know. Doesn't want to know.
It's going to change you, buddy.
Yeah,
don't look too closely.
Yeah, like I think it was Nietzsche. Like if you look into the abyss, it will look back. I often have sleepless nights, just like tossing and turning, where I'm like, "Fuck, what have I let myself into?" Like, but yeah, let's kind of talk about what takes place in this journey our hero takes. Or
I'll tell you what takes place. Awful lot of Nicolas Cage taking flights to cities millions of miles apart without them ever showing you him getting on a plane or travelling in any way. They'll cut and he's in LA, then they'll cut and he's in New York, and then they'll cut and he's in Philadelphia, and then he goes to somewhere else, I can't remember where else, but he goes all over the bloody place.
Yeah, with the way I love
Miami, that was it.
I love the way that they let you know though, is by like it sounds like a kind of stock sound of just a plane swooshing, like a and it's like, that's it. That is all you need. Joel Schumacher was like, we could have like a little kind of checking in scene or something like that. It could have been half a day's work, like just like the same airport, just different outfits, different locations of the airport. I don't know, something like flipping a passport or something, but nothing. It's just that swoosh.
That whoosh, the whooshing noise. But yeah, man, it's because Raging Cage is a surveillance expert / private eye, right?
Yeah,
he's
that's what I thought.
Gumshoe, if you will. But he's like a high society gumshoe. He's like doing stuff for, posh people.
Yeah, people who kind of, I felt like, I wasn't sure if that is all he did, but like, I felt in this case it gave the film a very nice, like, this story wouldn't exist if they weren't so high society. Because, like, if we go into it, that the family who employ him are, as Todd said, very high society, and they have a very dark, deep secret locked in a vault, which happens to be a lady called Mrs.
Christian. She's that kind of American posh. You know, when Americans get so posh, they start to sound like Frasier.
Yeah.
Yeah, she talks like Frasier Crane.
She reminded me, I don't know why, she just kept reminding me of the old lady in Titanic as well.
Right,
like,
yeah.
Like, just because you kind of, like, every so often just got, like, shots back to her, just, like, lit by candlelight, just looking very wistfully, like, oh, I hope everyone's okay.
Fucking not.
Yeah, exactly. But she has found in her safe, well, her husband's safe,
He's
who has
passed away.
Yeah, oh, good. That's what I'd bloody say to that. Not only she found cash, stocks, certificates. Oh, and what's that poking around in the back of the safe? A little filmy film. Let's pop it on the projector and see what's going on.
Oh no! It is an 8mm film of a poor young lady, about 16 years old, being murdered dead
by kind of a guy who, like, a bondage hangman is kind of like the image, like, yeah, that's like, who has a tattoo of a pentagram on his hand.
Yeah. Now it's kind of interesting the way they handle this bit, I reckon, because they don't really show you the film. Don't get me wrong, guys, I do not want to see the film. That's absolutely clear. But, like, at this point in the film, as we're watching 8mm, what we see instead is we see Cage's face as he watches the film. And it's just a single tear rolls down his cheek, and he just does a lot of, like, pounding his fist on the table going, no! No! So we know that some horrible stuff goes down.
Yeah, and he comes out of the room looking, like, dishevelled, and is, like, re-putting himself back together, like, fuck, I've been through a lot of shit in there. Like, almost in an Ace Ventura, like, I expected, like, a, woo, do not go in there. So, and they set it up quite, like, I felt in this scene, it set it up that he says straight away, like any rational person would if they found that film, you need to go to the police, guys. And they're like, no. We are high society. Our name cannot be tarnished and dragged through the mud. We need to keep this all on the hush-hush, on the DL. You are the guy to sort this fucking shit show up.
And he's like, well, you know, she's probably not even dead. It's probably fake. And old lady Frasier Crane basically goes, we'll give you as much money as you could possibly want.
Yeah, like, fucking, and...
Because she just wants to know that the girl's still alive. She wants it to be fake because she loves her dearly departed husband and she wants him to be a goodie.
Yeah, and she is set up as, like, lady exposition as well, because when explaining, obviously to us, the audience, but Nicolas Cage's character explains to her, oh, this conveniently is what a snuff film is. Do we have to explain what a snuff film is?
It's footage of a murder.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. It tends to be of, like, a sexual nature to begin with, and then things get fucking bad. Let's leave it at that.
I think this is what makes it just feel so grimy, like, compared to... I watch a lot of horror films. I watch a lot of horror films, a lot for my podcast that I do, a lot just for myself, you know. And the best ones aren't necessarily just like the idea of this isn't so much scary. I mean, it is scary,
yeah,
but that's not the feeling that sticks with you. It's just horrible, this icky, like it's on your skin, this really, I don't know, just disgusting feeling. And that's kind of what starts to creep into this film here. Yeah,
it's the like the answers you might find and the reasoning behind it. Just like, it's not almost like the monsters you're looking for, like, because they might not be.
Yeah.
They might not be what you expect, and like their reasonings might not it might not be wrapped neatly in a bow. Like, I don't know, like serial killers and stuff like that, and slashers have their kind of modus operandi. They have their they have their rules and their reasonings for doing that. Whereas this kind of looks at like that almost real life horror of what do real people like? What are their real reasonings? Like,
yeah,
if that makes
it does, and and that's like. So it looks at that, but the other thing, as mentioned, is that like you were saying, how this is a microcosm of you doing the podcast. It's kind of, you can't look at that without part of it rubbing off on you. You know? That's this feeling, and like now I just feel like a bad person for having watched this movie.
Yeah, definitely. So moving on with what the fuck happens, he just hits the bricks and is starting to lead his investigation. He finds, he goes to just
he goes to some place where they handle the missing persons bureau, right? And they give him an old-fashioned Rolodex of cards with, they say something, I think it's like 500 million missing people on it or something like that. Everyone's just a card, a name, and a photo. They're not even sorted by gender.
And he has, because he says some of it is on computer, and he's like, apart from that, you're thumbing through the rest of it, and it's like, better roll up those roll neck sleeves and get to work, mate.
And then we get the world's greatest thumbing through montage that I've ever seen. It's supposed to represent about 2 weeks of Cage's life, and it's just him looking at cards, shaking his head, going, "Oh, this is hard work." Look, checks out the next card. That one's a bloke. Checks out the next card. That's an old lady in her 90s. Checks out the next card. This one's a young girl. Bit of a different face, though. Flipping through. Montage goes on for quite a long time.
But relatively, it seems like it doesn't really... The passing of time doesn't really come across.
Yeah.
Like, that it is, days. I don't know. I feel like it kind of should have had an overlay of a ticking clock or a classic
calendar pages coming
off.
But then I tell you what, miraculously he put the hours in, and the hours bloody pay off, don't they? Because he finds a card and he goes, "That's my girl. I know I only saw grimy 8mm footage of her once in creepy old lady Fraser Crane's house, but I can tell from this completely different looking picture of her that is the exact same girl on this card."
Not only does he have the footage to go by, he kind of has an e-fit that looks like he's done it. It's just that is his in to this missing persons investigation place. He kind of says to them, "This is an e-fit I've got. You've got a girl matching this." They're sceptical of him because, well, he's Nicolas Cage, you fucking would be. But now he has got his girl, and he finds out that her name is Mary Ann Matthews, and tracks down her mum, and he goes over for a nice little chit chat, smoking of a cigarette.
He pretends to be an FBI agent and is like, "Oh, there's been some news about your daughter's case. Don't get your hopes up, but I need to reopen it. Let me in. We'll share some whiskey and chat." And the mum's obviously her life is totally broken because her daughter disappeared, and she's she's in this permanent state of depression, and she's like, "My daughter never even left a note." And then Cage goes to the loo, looks in the loo, and there's a note there.
Yeah, in the cistern of the toilet, and we find out at this point that she has been missing for 6 years.
I think it's 6 years, man.
And I don't know how good Ziploc bags are. I'm sure any American listeners can let me know how airtight and how durable those puppies are. But 6 years in a cistern, I'm surprised there's not water damage, or if not, it's completely fucked.
Considering that the whole reason the mum didn't find it is because she never cleaned the toilet.
Yeah.
Because it is rank, guys. You would expect some sort of discoloration at the very least.
Yeah, definitely. But he finds a note that was left for the mum, which kind of explains, again, Exposition City. Not only does it explain her plans to, "I'm getting out of this deadbeat town and I'm hitting the big city of LA. I'll show you guys I'm gonna be somebody. You see my name in the big bright lights." It has the full name, address, last known whereabouts, family tree, dental records, x-rays, like hobbies of her then boyfriend, Warren fucking Anderson.
Yeah, so she's running away to the big old Tinseltown with Warren Anderson because Warren wants to be an action movie star. And I was like, cool, okay, he's going to be this like Vin Diesel type. And then when we finally see Warren, like, because he's in jail, motherfucker, he's the scrawniest little wimpy little guy. There's no way he was going to be an action movie star. No wonder his dreams fell apart and he ended up in jail.
Yeah, he looked like a crackhead version of Michael Pitt.
Yes, yes, exactly. If only he'd gone for like a more of an art house career, or possibly looked at some extra work to begin with and then get into being a character actor. Could have possibly tried his hand at some comedy. He might have been much more successful, but no, he had his eyes set on the bloody Triple X4 or whatever.
Exactly. He should be knocking on the the door of Gus Van Sant, not fucking Michael Bay.
Yeah,
like
that's where he went wrong.
And he is a total prick as well. When questioned, like, oh, what happened when you guys went to LA? He's thinking, like, oh, that fucking bitch could be dead for all I care. I fucking dumped her ass as soon as we got to LA. She fucking holding me back. Like, I had a meeting with Michael Bay and she was like, oh, stay in bed. And I was like, no, bitch, I'm going.
So it didn't work out. And this guy doesn't really give him any clues. Cage is like, well, do you know where she went? And he was like, no. That's it. And so now that Nicolas Cage is in LA, he, like, on a hunch, he goes to a pawn shop, right? That's pawn with an R, not a W.
Yeah, and before this, we get a brilliant montage of, like, saying about, like, the overlay of, like, before. We just get, a shot of him just cruising, like, the seediest parts of LA, with, like, all the neon lights, kind of
girls,
overlay,
girls,
XXX, and like kind of prostitutes all over. I assume they could just be out for a night out. I don't want to get in any deep water there.
Oh mate, and you know who he finds in the pawn shop? Joaquin Phoenix,
the big whack himself, who is, I thought he was a great character. He's like, he kind of felt out of, the way he was playing him though felt really out of place almost in this really moody, like, dark film. He was kind of trying to, like, crack wise, almost, like, definitely looked like he'd walked off the set of Hackers, like, straight
oh my god,
this.
Totally. So yeah, he's a character called Max California. Used to be in a failed rock band called Hard Spank with Max California. And the thing is that, like, he's playing it fairly understated, but the whole conceit of the character of Max California is supposed to be that he's far too intelligent for this town. He's like, Nicolas Cage keeps saying, sort of like, why didn't you do something with your life? You're so intelligent. He knows that he's intelligent because he saw him reading a book once.
Capote.
He was reading Capote's In Cold Blood. And he's like, this kid's a genius.
And the book is under the guise of, like, the cover of Anal Penetration or something like that.
Yeah.
I believe that is, like, the name.
Which is really something that needed to be novelised.
Yeah, exactly. Like, oh, yeah, can't wait for the hardback. But he has a speech at one point as well. It's not really, like, time specific to the plot, but, like, he kind of says that, like, working in porn is, like, the only career. Like, he's like, it beats working at a gas station. I was like, there's a lot of other things that beat
working. Two options.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, I'm at a fork in the road. I've got gas station, which conveniently happens to be on the just round that bend on the fork of the road, or porn. Like, just selling porn, selling. What are they? Battery-operated vaginas, which he is. There must have been an incentive that week because he is trying to upsell them
hard, son. Yeah, and despite the fact that he's such a bright kid, he really knows the porn industry inside and out because once you hang around with that industry long enough, oh man, it sucks you in. It's insidious. It's like quicksand. It's like the undertow, and it's the mud of it will stick on your skin, and it's stuck on Max California.
And Max is Tom? Is Tom.
Tom is Nicolas Cage.
Yeah, Tom is Nicolas Cage. Thomas Wells or Thomas he uses another surname, which is a very clever device, because I've always heard if you use like a fake name, always good to go with a little bit of truth, because the lie. Yeah, I heard that from someone who worked for the CIA on.
Oh my goodness!
Not first hand, obviously. Not that fucking important at all. But he takes him underground, literally underground, into this world of porn. They kind of go to one place, and he's very brash about like what he's after. He's like, hey guy, like flashing the cash, like, I'm after that snuff, you got a bit of that snuff? And they are kicked out very swiftly. Move on to a very questionable gentleman in his both attire and behaviour. Would you care to explain this gentleman?
I'm not sure I know which guy you mean.
Well, there's a gentleman, kind of scraggly long
Oh,
hair.
Mr. Nipples.
Mr. Nipples.
Right, yes, okay, sorry, because there's so many questionable gentlemen in this whole
sorry,
thing. Yeah, so the guy that kind of first is like, they're flashing the cash around, and this is, in my notebook I just wrote, this is where the movie is getting grim. Because it's just this montage of him, like, going around to these horrible, like, car boot sales and being like, what you got, what's the worst thing you've got? What's the worst thing you've got? And it's... But Mr. Nipples is like in this kind of leather onesie with his nipples exposed, and they're just having a conversation, and he's constantly just twiddling his nipples.
Yeah, and he's like, the price I told you was like 5,000 or like 10,000, now it's 12,000. And he's like, but you told me it was 10. And he's like, yeah, but I kind of enjoy raising the price, and you argue with me. And it's like, is this his thing?
I think it's his thing, man. Which, comparative to a lot of the other stuff in this movie is someone's thing, that's quite mild.
Yeah, haggling.
Yeah,
haggling.
He's really into haggling.
Yeah, he just watches that one scene from Life of Brian. Like, ooh. I imagine it would be very cheap on like your porn consumption if haggling was your like, and quite mundane as well. But it really gets bad when they go to. I don't even know where this would be, but it is this real underground like lair. Looks like something, I don't know, looks like the bottom of a castle.
Yeah.
It just looks fucking rank down there. And it is, as like Todd said, it is like a car boot sale, like the worst fucking car boot sale you could ever imagine.
And everything that they keep getting sold, they have to watch it, and they're like, oh, this is horrible, it's changing me, it's so traumatic. But then, at the end of it all, they keep finding out that these movies are fake.
Yeah.
So there's one where they're watching this girl get murdered, and they're like, oh, it looks pretty real to me, and even Max California is like, you found your stuff, that's the real stuff. And then they go, oh, we'll pop the next one in, and they watch it, and it's the same girl. So they're like, that can't have been real, because here she is in the next movie. But then how do you know that she's not being murdered in the second one?
Yep. Yeah, make a bluff tape.
He's a pretty shit detective.
Yeah, but like then at this car boot sale they meet, like, I thought he was going to play a bigger part, like a real sinister looking minister who's kind of sat at this desk, like lit brilliantly, kind of just like shadows half across his face, and he's like, he's got the real hard stuff, and he's like, it's bad, it's real bad. And like Cage is like, yeah, but I want to go badder, I want to go deeper, I want that snuff, man. And like he just delivers this brilliant line. It's like, just kind of, snuff ain't real. And it's like, that's when you know, like, this is bad. Like, and before that as well, he put his thumbing technique to perfect use when he was thumbing through, like, he did, I don't think he had to do this. He thumbs through like a load of photos with like, oh, it's fucking horrible, because there's like those signs you see, like homeless people, like Sharpie on a bit of raggedy old cardboard, just says kids. And I don't know why, like, it's not even that deep, and like it's not
quite early in the film, and I think obviously this is right. So there's a heavy burden with this movie, okay? Like, so it's a reasonably well constructed kind of crime noir mystery with some sort of grisly horror overtones, and it works on that level. I think it doesn't do a particularly good job of like addressing some of the more like social quandaries of like the voyeurism of going down into this underbelly and how that industry works. It kind of glosses over a lot of that for the purposes of moving the plot along.
There's no
It's like, we could dwell on sort of the reasons and the meanings and what the responsibility of society is and all of this stuff, which, you know, a lot of possibly, dare I say, more accomplished filmmakers than Mr. Schumacher might be able to... I know that's not how to pronounce his name, by the way.
No.
I'm just keep thinking of elves and the Shoemaker. Than him, they might be able to do that. But he's like, well, you know, we could have this, or we can get to the fucking chase 20 minutes earlier. And already I do think that at 2 hours, 3 minutes, this movie could do with being 20 minutes shorter. So, yeah, man, this is one of those bits where I'm like, I don't feel good about this movie. And it's not even just that like the movie is showing me such a shocking vision of reality.
Well,
that makes me feel bad. Just the movie makes me feel bad.
There's like a half-assed attempt, I think, when they are watching like what turns out to be the fake snuff, where like Max is like, oh, do you want to just take a break, man? But like I don't think that's enough to be like, condemn this. Like, it's not you should condemn, like, but as you were saying, like the social implications, like
well, it's real stuff to an extent, like,
yeah.
And that's the thing, and I like the movie sets itself up as being very existential. Like you said, there's a lot of stuff about him trying to find the monsters and the reasons why, and sometimes they're just normal people and all of this, and that's the point of the movie. It's existential. Bad stuff just happens because bad stuff happens, right? And that's true in life. Bad stuff happens because bad stuff happens, and sometimes people do bad things because they're just bad people. But like, I know that I live in the world and it's horrible, and I'm not saying that all movies need to be escapist, but like that's not much of a point.
Yeah, you need a bit more than just that. Like, that's
like going up to someone going, "You're a prick because I hate you."
Yeah, well,
like, your reasoning does not follow through.
It definitely makes you. It's quite unfulfilling in that, like, I don't know. Like, I found, like, we'll get to what happens at the end, but when it got to the end, it was kind of a bit like, oh. Yeah,
I think it's supposed to be a real, like, philosophical gut punch.
Yeah, but it's kind of a bit more like, I don't know, like a bit of a whimper. Like, I wasn't like, I don't know, I don't feel knotted up inside.
I hear you, bro.
I've seen some fucking dark shit.
We're getting ahead of ourselves.
Yeah. So he, like, Tom then goes to I believe it's like a hostel or
it's a convent.
Yeah. And had a little chat with the nuns, not for snuff this time. He's after a bit of information on Mary Ann. He's like, do you guys know anything about this lady? And like, oh, well, come down to this room that we have full of hundreds of suitcases of anyone who's ever stayed here. And like...
that one's hers.
Yeah, that one, the real bright white floral one. That's the one you're looking for.
That belonged to that one girl that stayed here 6 years ago. Yes, of course, I remember. Here you go. We were holding it for you.
Yeah, and I hope you can get it to anyone, like her family or something like that. So he flicks through the little suitcase, and what does he find? He finds a note and finds a few phone numbers, and he starts like hitting the trail, hits a few bum notes, hits a few dead ends, and then finds that one of them is for a like porn company called
Celebrity Films.
Oh, Celebrity Films. And that's it. He's out the door. He's going down to Celebrity Films to see what the fuck is going down. And it's just adorned, like, it's littered with just girls skimpily, like, dressed, like, kind of, you know what you're in for as soon as you get there. And then we're introduced to Eddie, played by
James Gandolfini, baby.
Yeah, Tony Soprano himself. Oh, the late great, I would say. Like,
he's too good an actor to be in this movie, and I quite like this movie.
I kind of that is a thing about a lot of these actors. Like, have gone on to do really good stuff. Like, in some cases, not mention any names, Nicolas Cage, their better days might be behind them, but that is obviously for me to find out throughout this journey. And yeah, he is fucking wild. Like,
he just likes boning, but
Yeah.
like he on first we meet him, he just seems he's a sleazy guy, but he doesn't seem like a crazy kinky snuff murderer.
No.
He just seems like he likes boning girls, cocaine, and money. Those are the three things that get him up in the morning.
and the way they let you know that is by like his sideburns have a real like defined point, like halfway down the cheek, and yeah, there's some interesting facial hair in this one,
Yeah.
and that is not the craziest whatsoever. But his poker face is fucking crap.
It's chump. Dude needs to work on his poker face, because Cage rocks up, shows him the picture, is like, hey, I'm looking for this girl. And he's just got a single bead of sweat appears on his forehead. He goes completely ashen white and he goes, nah, I ain't seen her.
Yeah. And then like when pushed further, he's like, I fucking told you I saw the photo. I still haven't seen her. And he is shitting it. But after that, he begins to tail him and like
Taps his phone.
yeah, and he's kind of listening to his calls, figuring out what's going on, and then like follows him to a porn set in the Hollywood Hills. It's real like dank looking, isn't it? It's real
Empty swimming pool full of dead leaves.
Yeah, and this is a shot I didn't feel like they needed in this film, but obviously for balance sake, we get a nice full dong shot of a male performer just before they're about to get to it. Obviously, I don't know if this had a lasting effect on Thomas, on Cage's like psyche for us.
This whole bit could be cut, because
Yeah, definitely.
we see him tap James Gandolfini's phone. We see him go to the porn shoot and watch some porn. Then we see him go home. Then we see James Gandolfini come home. And then Cage phones up James Gandolfini, puts on a scary voice, and it's like, I know what you did. I know what you did with that girl, that girl that you killed 6 years ago. And then he hangs up the phone, and then he watches what Gandolfini does.
Well, he like, and like the brilliant way he like does it as well. He's like, "You're fucked. They're fucked. You're all fucked." Yeah, and then
He's got a point.
yeah, he's there in like the conveniently empty like apartment opposite his office.
If you're going to do shady stuff, make sure that you also rent the apartment opposite, so
Yeah.
nobody else can do it.
Yeah, no one can look in. No one can like. There can't be any twitchy blinds. Just fucking rent out the whole block. Come on. He then calls someone like real shook up. He's like, "Fuck, he's onto us. Like he's gonna get us. We're real fucked this time. Like one of us has got to fly over. We've got to talk about this in person. We can't talk about this right now." To get the response like, "Oh, shut the fuck up, you paranoid dickhead." Something along that line. And then Cage is talking to our main man Max, and is kind of going, "Oh, do you know who this?"
Because he recorded the bleeps on the phone call, and he you on those old touchtone phones, it's like beep boop boop bap, boop
Yeah.
boop boop, and he's like, okay, well I know the tune of that, and he works it out from that what the phone number is, and then he like backlists the phone number, and he finds out it's registered to a Mr. Dino Velvet. Dino Velvet. He's amazing. Not actually Dino the dinosaur, but does actually wear velvet.
Yeah. The Velvet Fog.
And fucking Max California goes, oh yeah, of course, Dino Velvet. He's the guy that makes all of those really horrible bondage porn films.
Yeah.
Probably should have mentioned that to you as soon as I knew you were looking for this kind of thing, really. But that would have saved us 45 minutes of runtime.
Yeah, and he's like, "Oh, who's the guy with the like tattoo?" Like after watching some of his work, he's like, "Who's the guy with the tattoo on his hand?" And he's like, "Oh, that's the Machine." And he's like, "Oh, well, you've had that information about a guy with a tattoo on his hand way before any of this. You could have just figured out who that guy was and then kind of skipped over a whole lot of this shit." But they like, and he's known, Dino Velvet, I wrote this down because he's known as the Jim Jarmusch of porn.
Or Jim Jarmusch.
Yeah, like, oh, fuck.
What does that mean? Does that just mean that it's full of unnecessary celebrity cameos?
Yeah, or like arty or something like that, or I don't know, like, I don't. It's in black and white. I'm not sure. I'm not sure. What, yeah.
Well, maybe it just means that he's lives in New York, because that is where they go. Yeah. You hear that whooshing sound, goes whoosh, and then suddenly they're in New York. And he's brought Max California with him to help him kind of pass in the porn world. And they've set up a meeting with Big D, Dino Velvet, the Velvet Machine.
And his office is fucking out of this. It is like a props warehouse almost of like seedy things for a porn owner's office. We've got everything. We've got these weird like plastic marble-esque looking statues of God knows what, and we find out as well that he is into the bespoke porn world.
Yes, he will accept commissions, which is handy because Cage got an exposition phone call from Mrs. Fraser Crane to explain that, oh yes, well, I've gone through my late husband's books, and I found that he paid exactly $1 million to a mysterious gentleman more or less 6 years ago, and it's the only transaction he ever made in his life.
Yeah, he's not a man who deals in cash. And that is what has led them to this meeting in this office in New York with the Velvet Fog, Dino Velvet. It always sounds like and another guy with fucking great facial hair.
Oh, yeah. So it's Peter, is it Stormare?
Stormare, yeah.
Something like that. Yeah, because I've been watching American Gods, and he's in that. He plays the god of death, and he's this like amazing Russian guy with this hammer that bleeds. He's baller in it. Yeah. He's pretty good in this.
Yeah, he's also got this kind of like Vlad the Impaler image, like this kind of, he's got a bit of a skullet going on, like he's looking fucking gnarly, and he looks sleaze, like there's just sleaze oozing out of him. But they have a conversation about, I've got $5,000 cash now, I'll give you $5,000 later. I want a black girl, I want a white girl, and I want that fella, like, kind of stumbles about, like, what do you call him? The McKean? Like, I'm after that guy. And he's like, oh, the Machine, my number one guy. And he has two stipulations, which are, he gets to watch the porn being made.
The Machine has to be there in person.
Yeah.
And so they set up this whole thing, man. So it's the deal's going to go down. He's like, this is incredibly irresponsible, by the way, because what he's basically doing is commissioning a suspected murderer to find two girls for the purposes of murdering them, so that he can just watch and be like, yep, that's the bloke. Now I've seen you done a murder. You're going down. What about those two girls? Whoa.
Well, I imagine $10,000 is not what it takes for the murdering. Hopefully that isn't the case.
He's just going to stub their toes or something. I don't think they're going to have a great time, mate.
Maybe this would have been a legit like porn film. I'm not sure.
Turns out though that Dino is not legit because he fucking double crosses him.
Yeah.
Nicolas Cage turns up. Machine's there. He's like, right, I'm ready to see you go to work. And then they get out, not the girls, but his mate Max California,
who is tied, gagged, and like bound,
bleeding.
Yeah, bloody, beaten, looking fucking shit. And they give him, not only is he, as he turned up, the fucking lawyer from the beginning who's looking after Lady Exposition, here's my lovely lawyer. I didn't trust him.
You know why I didn't trust him? Because he's played by the same dude that's the evil psychiatrist in Silence of the Lambs.
Yeah, I sometimes feel like castings like that, if they are, if someone's in a role where they it almost seems too beneath them. It's like, yeah, I know you're gonna like. I always feel like Seven was ruined for me because as soon as I heard the murderer's voice, it's like, it's Kevin Spacey. Like, he's got one of the most distinctive voices in Hollywood. Sorry if I've just ruined Seven for you guys.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah. But yeah, he's pulled out. Eddie's pulled out. He's there to finger Cage. Not in that way.
Easy. Yeah. So the lawyer's there because turns out he was the one that commissioned the original $1 million snuff movie for the late deceased Mr. Christian, and he's been on Nicolas Cage's tail the whole time. He hired him because he thought he was going to be crap.
Yeah, he thought he was going to be an incompetent young fool. But
he just wanted the story to die. But unfortunately, Cage was too fucking on it, man.
Yeah, he's turning over every stone to see what is going down. And they give him an ultimatum. They're like, right, so you either give us the film or Max is brown bread, mate. We've got him against a cross,
giant wooden crucifix, and Dino Velvet's got a crossbow.
Yeah, like
yes, mate.
Really nailing home that kind of, I don't know, 17th century vibe he's got going on of being some kind of. You could just see him in a kind of Renaissance painting, draped with women and wine being spilt everywhere. Yeah,
it's his aesthetic. It's very Vlad the Impaler.
Yeah. It's that kind. And he goes to the car where our man, lawyer Longdon or
Langdale or something.
Lawndale is saying like, you're a piece of shit. Like we don't fucking like. I'm gonna kill you, basically. Like I just give me the tape. And we're fucking done with.
And Cage just keeps going, why did Mr. Christian want this film? Why? What did he want it for? And Matey Boy Lawyer is just like, he just wanted it because he could have it.
Yeah, it's like, this is supposed to be one of those...
Dun, dun, dun! Like, yeah, just a real kind of, no, I've taken a psychic knockback, what? But it's just a bit like, that's your best shot, is it? Or like, but like, if that's what... He didn't even need to ask the question because we kind of knew that. There was never going to be like a weird twist of why he wanted it. He wanted it to watch it because he was fucked up. Right? Like, what else was it going to be?
Yeah, and this is like... I felt like that reveal there, though, kind of really dampened something that happens later on. Because...
I hear you, buddy.
Yeah, and he goes back in, and I have actually drawn a diorama of what happens when he goes back in. Because as he returns, they kill Max, and it is revealed once Cage is chained to a bed that... He's like, Langdon, what about the $1 million? What about the $1 million you paid these guys to make this film? I bet you guys fucking loved it. Why are you not living it high with that $1 million you got? Because you got paid $1 million, didn't you? They paid you $1 million, and they're like, what $1 million? We got a tenner and a McDonald's. Like, well, this guy, and he's edging out. The lawyer's edging out like, I don't know what you're talking about. It wasn't me. And then shit gets hairy. So
it kind of turns into like this Reservoir Dogs scenario where they're all turning on each other.
Yeah. It's like a Mexican standoff-esque thing.
Yeah. Like. Meanwhile, Cage is in the middle of all of it, handcuffed to a freaking chair. Lawyer gets shot
with a crossbow.
Dino Velvet gets shot in the neck, and he gets like, no, I was supposed to die in a more cinematic fashion. And I thought he was going to be the big villain. So it's not that cinematic a death. He's just like shot in the neck, and then his eyes roll back, and he's like, I die.
And then you have the machine to his left, and you have Eddie to his right.
And Eddie's Gandolfini, just to recap, yeah.
And things then take a turn where, obviously, Dino, the kingpin of it all, is kind of down, and the two buffoons are left to pick up the pieces, and Eddie tries to go for the lawyer's gun whilst the machine is kind of sharpening his knife, getting ready to fuck up Cage. Cage is edging over towards the table where his convenient gun is placed upon a towel, and his bullets are all laid out neatly. Very, very close, but just far enough that it's going to be a bit of a struggle, and to get to him he's going to have to make a little bit of commotion, and the banging sound is going to startle them so much that they're going to turn around and go, that's it, we're going to fucking get you now, you dickhead.
But then he's got a conundrum because he gets the gun, but there's only one bullet. He's got Gandolfini, he's got the big mean machine, he's got one bullet. What does he do? He shoots the handcuffs so he can get away. Clever lad.
not before stabbing the machine in the stomach with a convenient kebab skewer he had hidden in the boot of his car.
Yeah.
That's the only way I can describe what he had. Like, it didn't look... It wasn't a knife, was it?
I think it's either an ice pick or one of those smaller tools that I believe is called a bradawl. They sell them in B&Q.
Okay.
It's for making little... It's like those... If you want to make a hole for where you're going to put a screw later...
Yes,
okay. I had to buy one recently.
A man who is much more versed in DIY than myself. Everything in my flat is held up by command strips. A very handy tool. If you're listening, command strips, yes, please.
I just want to be sponsored by Bradles. Just
yeah.
the general tool. When I bought it, the guy in B&Q was like, do be careful with that. It's like about as long as a pencil. It's incredibly sharp. And I looked at it and it's just the most terrifying tool. I don't even like knowing that it's in my house.
So, especially now that Nicolas Cage impaled a man's stomach and left him bleeding in a disused warehouse in the middle of New York.
Yeah. But then Cage seizes the moment and he goes, fuck, I'm getting out of here, holy shit, ah! And he doesn't like sneak away, he just runs going, ah! And he gets in the car and he calls his wife. We've not even really mentioned the wife, but he's got a wife, and he calls her up and he goes, ah! You've got to run away,
Go to our holiday home in Bumfuckville, USA, hide out there, I'll be 3 hours. Don't you worry about it. And then he calls up old Mrs. Christensen to let her know your worst fears are true. Your husband was a dirty, low-down snuff purchaser prick. Sorry.
He was a Johnny Wrongen.
Yeah. And this is a moment I want to mention because as he's running out, the soundtrack is kind of almost like microtonal, like bagpipe, Indian-esque bagpipe sounds, and like just kind of mental drumming going on. And the scene before, I'm pretty sure we had like some 9 Inch Nails-esque like music. And yeah, do you want to like...
Well, Matt, like, just the score is all over the shop, and the thing is that no one section of it is bad. Like it's quite artfully handled, but there's like zero consistency from scene to scene. And just when they want it to be like, yeah, it's the late '90s, and Trent Reznor is cool, and this guy's got black trousers on, so we're going to be like drum machines and fucking bomb, 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 bam, bomb, bomb, that kind of thing. We'll do that, but then like when some horror's happening, maybe we'll like sample some Middle Eastern folk singing and like do some tribal drumming, and it'll be like like all of that going on. But then when there's an emotional bit, we'll get an orchestra in. It will be like
the film started off with like
pick one,
a real nice like flute, and I was like, oh, this is quite mysterious. This is quite like, oh, where's this gonna go? And I thought if it had kept that kind of, because you looked at me straight away and was like, oh, I wonder who did this score, because if it had kept that kind of classic like orchestral score, I think it would have made this like
any one of them. I wouldn't have minded if it was 9 Inch Nails the whole way. I wouldn't have minded if it was Middle Eastern folk the whole way. I'm fucking looking up who did it. Carry on, and I will meet you in a minute.
No worries. And then he goes back to his wife in this hovel, and it's like, she's like, take a fucking look at yourself in the mirror. You look like shit. And this is almost like a moment in the film where it's like, almost like, hey, how about you as an audience take a quick loo break and you look at yourself, see how dirty you feel from what you have seen. Like I kind of felt like it was a moment where it was a time to breathe, because you'd had this kind of explosion of violence and you'd had the revelation that Mr. Christian wanted the tape for no other reason than, I've got a spare $1 million, let's get a snuff film made, can it happen? And this was kind of like, let's cool down, let's regroup, let's see what the fuck is going on with ourselves. And yeah, it kind of, I'm saying this like it was a good part. It kind of just felt like lulled here.
It's a bit of a lull. It's supposed to be like underlining the peril, I think. It's like he got too deep. He was originally quite cold to his wife at the start of the movie. Like now he's realised what's important. He's in too deep. He's just trying to sort it out, and then he'll get out. I have to add, as a little juncture at this point, the music is done by a guy called Michael Danner, and the top credit on his IMDb page is Pixar's The Good Dinosaur.
Ooh.
Back to the plot. So yeah, it's meant to be like about like, oh, you know, what is here is kind of the folly, right? This is the turning point for him, because in theory, if he just stops here, everything was maybe going to be okay. I think that's the implication.
Yeah.
It doesn't necessarily look like Machine or James Gandolfini are going to come after Cage, but like he can't leave it alone.
Especially when he had arranged with Mrs. Christian that he would like go see her that evening, and arriving at her door, her lovely butler, who I can only assume is called Jeeves or Alfred or any other distinctly stereotypical name, informs him that she is dead. She was taken by her own hand.
She couldn't handle it, man. She couldn't handle the guilt of knowing that the man she loved was such a brutal knob.
And she conveniently left 2 envelopes which are addressed for the mother of Mary Ann and for Nicolas Cage himself. Thomas Wells, obviously not just for this. Let's break the fourth wall here.
And Mrs. Cage.
Yeah.
Mrs. whatever his real name is.
And he's like, it's almost like his Godfather moment. Like he was out, and it's like, just when he thought he was out, they pull him back in.
Or it's more he pulls himself back in, though, is the thing. You know, it's his downfall. So, because he does go under a real downfall, he gets on another fucking whooshy flight out to Hollywood just to kick the shit out of Gandolfini, who's also somehow gotten back there incredibly quickly.
Yeah, he's loading up a car full of, like, porn, as you do.
Because he's going to do a runner, I think, go into hiding or something.
Yeah, some gas in there as well.
But he was in New York earlier, so he had to fly
surely,
back.
Yeah, definitely.
If he wanted to disappear, couldn't he have just disappeared from New York?
Yeah.
He had to go home and get all of his personal...
Quick flight to Canada.
Yeah.
living in the mountains for the rest of your life. But obviously he wanted all that porn to take with him. It's like, I've amassed such a collection over the years.
Sentimental.
Yeah, exactly. What about the first one I ever had a part in, like, getting produced? And then he takes him, he's like, you are going to take me to where you committed this heinous crime. We're going there now, which kind of is what you would expect it to be. It's a derelict, spray paint ridden hole in the outskirts of LA, and
he like ties Gandolfini up and he's like, tell me what you did to her. And he's like, well, we took her here and then we killed her.
Yeah, and he's like, again, it's another realization that, oh, there's no grand scheme to this. They're not monsters. Well, they are monsters, but they're not like, they don't have there's no logic behind it, or it's just like, we just did it.
Because I think there's supposed to be quite a key difference between the character of Machine and why he kills, and the character of Gandolfini, who during the speech he basically says, well, I kind of did it for money, basically.
And he's like, and he was just a voyeur to it,
but he didn't even really like watching it. He was just like, no, it made me sick, but you know, dollar bill, y'all.
And he performs one of the weirdest acts I have seen committed to film, which is when Cage is waggling a gun in his face, he just licks the end of the barrel and he's like, do it.
Bring
shoot
it on.
me, shoot me.
And this is a super important crux in Cage's character's development, because he's like, he chickens out. He can't do it. He's not a killer. He's just a detective. But he goes outside, he has a bit of a cry, and he phones up Mrs. Matthews, the mother of the dead girl, in the middle of the night. And he's like, I found them. Your daughter's dead. I'm really sorry to tell you. It's the middle of the night. Your daughter's dead. I'm sorry, but these guys killed her, and I've got one of them here. What should I do? Do you want me to kill them? And she's like, I'm really sleepy and sad. What are you talking about? And he's just like, I need you to give me permission to kill them. And she's like, yawn, cry. And he's like, just say that you loved her. And she goes, yeah, I loved her, boo-hoo. And then he's like, right, that's all I needed. Because I think the thing is, he's been hanging around in this environment so much, he wants to kill him. That's the thing.
Definitely,
he wants to do it. And so he contrives this permission, and then he bloody does it.
He covers him in the porn and fucking lights him up before that, smashing his face in with the butt of a gun. He's just gone feral. He's just like, I felt like, it was just like this, but that could have been a whole film of itself. Do you know what I mean? Like a classic
revenge.
Yeah, like Death Wish or something like that. Like,
and I think this is again like, not that the film is really trying to say that much, although it bloody wants to. It's certainly got a high opinion of itself. But, you've got your Gandolfini, he kills for money. You've got Machine, he kills for personal gratification. And then you've got your third type, which is Cage, who here is killing for, like, justice or a moral obligation, supposedly, and whether he has that moral obligation or not, is he manufacturing it for his own needs?
Yeah, for almost his gratification.
Yeah.
The world is not as he wants it to be or sees fit for the world to be.
Oh, mate, it's about as deep as a 17-year-old that's read 2 books.
And he then moves on to find out, like, who the fuck the Machine is. And this is probably the best bit of investigating he does.
Yeah.
But it is, like, page 1, like, detective work for dummies, like, that's right there. If you're looking for someone who's been in an accident, call up all the hospitals.
Did anyone be stabbed with a B&Q Brattle in the abdomen in the New York area yesterday? And first couple of people, no. Next person, someone got stabbed with a B&Q Brattle, but it was 2 days ago. Oh no, that's too early. And then someone's got the exact right guy. Yeah, we had a Brattle stabbing in the New York area on that exact day. Yeah, he had a star tattoo on his hand, actually. Yeah, you're just a bloke on the phone. Do you want his name and address?
Yeah, he's registered
his mum's name and address as well, in case he's there.
Goes, and then that's it. At the cover of darkness, Cage is lurking about in the suburbs of New York, and he finds out where the Machine lives, whose name is George.
Higgins.
Boring old George.
George Higgins.
And he's out there, he's lurking about. He hears that the mum is off out for an excursion. She's had a night out on the town. She's like, don't worry, George, I'll be back by 10:30. And then he's like, right, that's it. I've got my time to pounce. He slips in through the basement window, creeps about to the sound of Aphex Twin Come to Daddy, which we find out is being played on vinyl in the Machine's bedroom, which is that of a 15-year-old metal fan.
It's full of Glenn Danzig posters and stickers, and he's got a pet spider.
Yeah, and he's essentially Buzz from Home Alone.
Yeah.
And like, the record is skipping, and like, I thought this was like, because when it kicks back in, like, the record unjams itself, and that's it. The fucking Machine is there. He's got his gimp mask on. He's ready to fucking get Larry and have it out with our boy Raging Cage. They end up scuffling about the house, and things take a turn. They go through the window.
Yeah.
And Kate, like,
they land in the cemetery, which is conveniently next door. They're literally fighting amongst the gravestones, and Cage makes the Machine take his mask off, and he's just a nerdy looking bloke with glasses that he had in his pocket the whole time, and he's like, my name's George, I'm a big dweeb. You want to know why I kill people? I just do it because I like doing it. And we're supposed to be like, no, the horror of the universe, no, my worldview, no, it's been shattered. But again, we already had that exact same scene earlier with the lawyer. I don't know, what do you think?
I thought, like, I thought that kind of scene where we found out that Mr. Christian had bought, like, the porn for just whatever, that is the same as this at the end. So it's like, oh, we've kind of seen this twist, like, I don't know, it's like finding out that someone is a ghost halfway through a film starring Bruce Willis. And then telling that someone else is a ghost at the end. It's like, well, we've already established that ghosts exist. Like, we've already established that, like, kind of people do stuff for no other reasons than just doing it. And like you said earlier, we live in a world where we just see fucked up shit happen for no other apparent reason, and people enjoy to do it. And yeah, it's not that I expect a nice, like, a real fucking whoa, it was aliens, or like there's a crazy twist.
I think the problem is it's presented as if it's a twist.
Yeah.
So you just get this mental disconnect, like maybe because we're so used to seeing twisty films, but like this information is given to us, and the music swells, and Cage is like, no, like as if it's this Luke, I am your father moment.
Well, and even the machine has a line which is like almost addressing the audience in like, oh, I'm not what you're expecting, am I? It just spells it all out.
Yeah.
It's just like, oh, I'm not the monster. I was never molested. I was never like abused. Like, I just do it for whatever reason, like for no reason whatsoever. And it's just like,
I get the point. It's just ham-fisted storytelling.
Yeah, it's just
slightly.
a bit
The point is fine, and that can stand, but just like they really fucking Mr. Elf and the Shoemaker there, like just too much eggy pudding in his over-egged pudding there.
well, I just didn't care by the time we got to. Like, I just didn't care who the machine was. Like,
No.
I didn't care I didn't feel like any reason would have been like, that's really put it into perspective.
It's not a mystery by this point, but it gets resolved because Cage just nobbles him dead.
Yeah.
Nobbles
He
him
nobbles
dead.
him dead and then returns home to his idyllic house in the suburbs.
And this bit stuck with me more, the way he comes home. So like he comes home, he comes through the door, and he's just like completely devastated, like crying like a baby. And he finds his beautiful wife who's there with the baby, and he goes into his wife's arms, and he's just like completely shaking. I would describe Nicolas Cage as attempting to act, which is quite a big deal. And he just says 2 words to his wife. He just says, "Save me. Save me." So we got to think, like, save me from what? Like, save me from the big dark universe, like that's just full of horrors, or is it like save me because I've now murdered 2 people?
Yeah, save me from myself.
Yeah,
it's what the reading I got from it was.
Or is it just like just get this filthy feeling off me, which is how I felt after watching.
Yeah.
the movie.
It's like I don't sometimes you just want a nice cuddle, don't
Yeah,
you? Like,
right.
Not
a lot of cuddling in this movie.
Yeah, I think it is just like that. Maybe that Save Me is just I don't know, sometimes when I get really hungover, I would just like someone to like just cuddle me and go, "It's gonna be all right, mate."
Yeah.
And
This scene, I think, is done the opposite of the previous one. This one, I think, is done really well. Like, it would have been a lesser scriptwriter would have probably given him a big speech there, or given the speech to his wife to be like, "Well, you see, you have to come home because look at everything that we have here," or whatever. But it's just with those 2 words and just Cage bawling his eyes out. Mwah.
And then the film is finished with a scene of a letter that Cage receives from Marianne, Mrs. Matthews. Marianne's mother, Mrs. Matthews. Sorry, just like that.
Marianne's dead, I'm afraid, mate.
Whoa, that's the big twist, guys. She's alive. Hand out of the grave. And she says, "Thanks for the money. Like, maybe me and you were the only people who ever cared about Marianne. Thank you for everything you've done. I'm glad to know your real name. Like, so long." Like,
And then the credits roll.
yeah.
That last shot wasn't strictly necessary. It's nice to know that the mum is thankful, but I probably could have assumed that.
Well, I think this is like indicative of like we talked about. Like, well, I had done a little bit of research to someone had that this film was kind of reined in by Joel Schumacher, and the like writer had plans for something a bit more like a lot more darker, which I don't know in what way. Like,
It's pretty dark.
yeah, I'm not sure whether like I don't know, or like it had more of just maybe like a fucked up ending, or like he never learnt his lesson or anything like that. Like that he just went off and that was it. Like,
Or maybe he'd like end like, oh, maybe he would have ended up like joining in with them and being like, actually, now I've hung out with you guys, you seem pretty sound.
yeah, and that's what I think. I think the dive just like by the end of it, he's like, he's in. He's fully in. He's been jumped into the gang. He's got his colours on. Like, he's gang banging and doing his thing. Like,
And maybe that's the point he would have made. I don't know if that would have made it a better film.
no, I'm not saying that, but like that definitely would have made it like darker and really pushed home that existential, like, we're all fucked. Even if you try and do good, well, it's not going to work out in the end. Like, there is no redemption for you. You're just fucked.
And then the credits roll.
Yeah. So, and then that's it. That is 8mm. And it is time to find out what the fuck the internet says about this film.
I wonder if there's a big difference between like how the internet rates it now and how it was reviewed on release. Because I can't remember if this was well received when it came out.
So I like to now look at whatever free scores I get on Google. And they happen to be this week IMDb, Rotten Tomatoes, and a man I really like to know which way his thumbs are pointing, and that is Mr. Roger Ebert. So IMDb, which way do you think this would be swinging?
Oh, mate. Well, IMDb is a harsh mistress. I'm going to call this in the mid-sixes, 6.5.
6.5 on the button!
Booyah!
Yes! Rotten Tomatoes, however, not so favourable towards this film at 22%.
Ouch. That seems harsh.
Yeah, like, I'm not sure.
It's not a masterpiece, but like...
It's not a 22%, I don't
watch it in
feel.
the 40s.
Yeah, I've definitely seen some higher rated dirge,
Right,
like,
yeah.
that was but we are, however, brought back up by our good mate Roger Ebert, giving it 3 thumbs up out of 4.
So I've seen pictures of Roger Ebert. He only has 2 hands.
Yes.
Where's he getting the extra thumbs from?
He uses Siskel, his partner.
Right. The late great Siskel, I believe, no longer with us, or is it Roger Ebert?
Roger Ebert is no longer with us. Yeah, Siskel's still out there. Fucking only putting 2. He only has a rating of 2 now. He hasn't got the other 2 thumbs to make it a full thing.
Now I'm sad again.
Yeah. He just has fingers. I give this 5 fingers out of 10. But yeah, that is what the internet felt as. Do you feel like they were harsh towards this film, or like?
Well, again, so I feel like the Roger Ebert score would have been more at the time, right? He's not revisiting it to give it a fresher.
No. Yeah.
So I think at the time this movie came out, especially off the back of like Seven hype, and like Joel Schumacher like attempting to do a very serious film after Batman and Robin. This is a serious for adults movie. There would have been a lot of hype, and people would have wanted to like it, probably, especially in the face of it being a movie that kind of defies you to like it to an extent. It kind of wants to put you off. So there's a certain bravery in going to see that movie, leaving the cinema and being like, yeah, I liked it. Yeah, you guys are all being like squeamish about it. You guys are the wimps. I'm the cool one because I liked it. So there's that feeling, but like over time and the internet, and I think people are a bit more desensitized now. And
well, I feel like in like this, I don't feel like a lot of people. I don't know. There's the glaring holes in this. That obviously this isn't a film like that kind of relates that much to like today, because obviously
the internet would have blown it out of the water.
Yeah. And it's kind of like I said quite early on, like when he was looking for the girl, like all he needed to do, like nowadays, would be like a reverse Google search on her image, and then bang, that's her. Like we know who she is. We don't have to meet any scummy ex-boyfriends. We don't have to be looking at any cisterns or anything like that. Like bang, we're sorted. No thumbing through photos. So we don't care. I don't really care about what the internet has to say about it. Only in that I like to know what you guys, the listener, think about this film. And first of all, I'm going to go to my good old mate Al with a bit more of his wacky shit on what he has to say about Nicolas Cage films. And he has to say these lovely words here. Like a very bad snuff film, but highly entertaining. Sign him up. Sign him up, guys. Get him a job at any reputable reviewing station. Mark Commode happens to move on from Five Live, here's your man. His name is Al. Get in contact and I will give you his details. And then we have, Todd was lovely enough to pop it on his Twitter if anyone had seen this film, and got a couple of responses from Joshua Warren, who originally just said, yeah, it's good, like, it's good. And I was like, do you care to elaborate? Like, that doesn't make for much go. I was thinking that doesn't really make for good podcast. Like, this person said good, but came with a solid, like, response, which is a solid late 90s Hollywood thriller about snuff films starring Nicolas Cage. What's not to love? Well, we have discussed a few things that were not to love. And then we have another one from Todd's pantheon of friends, which is...
Yeah, this is from the Twitter user Pukey, who tweeted me to say, I saw it in a theatre 20 years back. So hang on, this was 99, right? So, Pukey, you are lying. It is at most 18 years. What I remember takes place in a small town in Pennsylvania. Well, partly. In a basement. Yeah, well, partly. With some glitch effects. Are you thinking of Seven, maybe? Like, that was the glitchy one. But overall, okay. And I agree with you, Pukey. It's a banging movie. It does all of those things. But also a bunch more.
Yeah.
Good on ya.
And that is it for what you guys thought about this film. So, as always, I have been Petrus Patsilivus.
I'm Todd Jordan. Thanks for having me on. Pleasure to be here.
Yep, sorry to interrupt you there, Todd. You can just quickly step with me to this. It's been a pleasure having you here, but you can just come with me into this darkened room here for a second. I just got something amazing to show you. Yep, just in here. Sorry about this, mate. It's just, I think it's all the cage. Just got really got to me. I don't know. Yeah, I've looked into the abyss and it has looked back at me, and I do not like it. You just happened to be here on the night I snapped. So yeah, all you listeners at home, as always, I've been your host, Petrus Patsilivus. That was Todd Jordan. We were caged in. You've been rad. Bye.